This is TWiT. The bad news from the Supreme Court. They decided not to take the case. Wikimedia, the parent company of Wikipedia, had sued the NSA over their upstream surveillance. As you probably know, I mean, this was a lawsuit from 2015. Thanks to Edward Snowden and other revelations, we've realized that the NSA wasn't getting into your Google and Facebook and Twitter account. They were just doing it upstream as it came out of those servers into the real world. And they were doing it basically for everyone. It was the suspicionless, that's the word they use, collection and searching of internet traffic on data transmission lines flowing into and out of the United States. They said, well, mostly it was just foreign targets, except for anybody the foreign target was talking to in the U.S. You were there too. But the justices said, no, it's protected because release of some information would damage U.S. national security. That seems sensible, actually, Mike.
I'm going to challenge that.
Okay.
So it's actually, there are a bunch of issues with the program and the setup, and it goes beyond kind of what you just described a little bit, right? So they were tapping all communications basically as they left or came into the United States, which you said, and they were doing that directly through the backbone providers, so AT&T, Verizon, whoever else. The issue was not just foreign nationals communicating with Americans. It was that they were basically scanning through everything, and it was to, from, and then it also included the much more scary about communication. So if you mentioned someone in an email that was on a target list, or if you mentioned a phone number or an email address or possibly some other keyword that was on a list, then it would get collected. And again, there's no warrant here. So you could be, as an American, having your communications collected. And then once it was collected, it would go into a larger database that then the FBI could search through without a warrant. And so there was all sorts of information that is not the type of thing that would normally be collected and certainly would raise Fourth Amendment issues in general. And yet, because of the sort of funky way in which it was done and set up, in that it was collected outside the U.S. Through the backbone and then sort of backed into this database that the FBI could search, it sort of had this, this one weird trick to get around the Fourth Amendment. And that's what the lawsuit was really trying to challenge. And the court basically said, for national security reasons, we're not even going to look into that. And that seems pretty questionable, because if you can just get around the entire Fourth Amendment by saying national security interests and maybe some other sort of fancy footwork to say, well, this is happening outside the U.S., not inside the U.S., so we're all good. The fact that it is collecting up, tons and tons of, American information without a warrant, and then allowing it to be searched by the FBI does seem to me like a pretty big deal.
They said this is permitted by the FISA Act, our good friend, the FISA Act.
Yeah. So that's the other thing, is that read the FISA Act and tell me where that's permitted.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting interpretation of the FISA Act that the NSA has said allows them to do that, but that's never really been reviewed by a court. And that was the point of this entire case by Wikipedia, represented by the ACLU, was the idea that, let's see that. Let's see the language. How do you justify from the language of the FISA Amendments Act that this would be allowed? And the courts basically said, we're not even going to review that because the government is saying national security secrets.
It was dismissed by the Fourth Circuit a couple of years ago, appealed to the Supreme Court, who declined to give cert. The ACLU lawyers argued that they should listen to the case, saying, quote, although this mass surveillance of Americans' private communications raises grave constitutional questions, its lawfulness has yet to be considered by any ordinary court, civil or criminal, in more than 20 years of operation. Yeah, it feels like that's exactly what the Supreme Court should be ruling on. Is this constitutional?
Yeah.
Is there no mechanism for them to do that kind of secretly? I mean, as Congress does?
I think that's the problem, is the Supreme Court doesn't really have a mechanism to do that, to do it to manage top secret,
they're not set up for that
processes.
Yeah.
And so, that's all a matter of public record, I believe. And so that's probably part of the pushback. And, in other shows, I'm very opinionated about the fact that, phones and everything else should be protected. Our phone, we shouldn't be just letting if we have it locked off, we don't want to hand it off. It's something that's very personal to us. I will say that, I work all over the world, and we're pretty, things are pretty safe here. We just want to remember that, like, as we start to unravel get into things, as we start to want to unravel these, a lot of the reason they're safe is because of a lot of these information gathering. When you understand tactically how they work, they're very, very, very powerful in a way that, we don't have. I work in countries where everybody has a fence around their house and broken glass and barbed wire across the top. And that's the other side. I don't want to be a fearmonger, but there's a lot of people gunning for us. We just want to make sure that we're clear that asymmetrical threats are a real thing, and most of them get buried pretty quickly because of these information gathering tools. And so,
does it come down, Alex, to whether you trust the NSA with that data? They call it Bumble Hive. They built a data center famously in Utah that can hold exabytes of data, and the thinking is that they're just storing all traffic. In this Bumble Hive.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think that there's obviously some major issues that could occur. I mean, and I think that trust is a big piece of it. And I think that I don't know if they've always been trustworthy in that area.
You gotta love the fact that the Bumble Hive has a web page. Here it is: Domestic Surveillance Directorate, defending our nation, securing the citizens. And right in front of Bumble Hive, there's a big sign. Kind of sign you'd see in front of a church. Welcome to the Utah Data Center. And then they have those little temporary letters they put up with your slogan of the week. It says, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Holy mackerel.
I don't think I put that there. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the exact motto the NSA would like to pursue, but that tells you something.
I feel like Eric Schmidt said something to that effect. And, the irony there is that Eric Schmidt, with his
pants,
extramarital relationships, and his
we
and
closed
his
the door on the bathroom. I got nothing to hide, but it's none of your business.
Yeah, I do think that we have to be very careful about this, but we also have to be very careful of I think that probably the Supreme Court looked at it and said, well, it is outside the country, and the NSA, of course, was built a long time ago, and it is specifically designed to do what it's doing. Like, it is not like we built something that kind of decided to move into this. Echelon was built to manage traffic.
For a long time, they denied the existence of Echelon. We only know about that. But FISA, GCHQ kind of admitted it. Whoops.
Yeah, so FISA, the FISA thing is new. It's 20 years old. Echelon is a lot older than that.
This was that keyword grabbing thing Mike was talking about, where it just looks at all traffic and say the word bomb 4 times and Beetlejuice appears.
Well, it's more of, so when the big thing about gathering all that data into the past is what it allows you to do is go forward and backward. So basically what happens is someone does something bad, and I can just go backwards in time and look at who they were talking to in the past. So, like, let's say someone does a terrorist act, I can go back to before they were a terrorist and see who they were talking to.
Oh, I see the value of it. I understand.
I don't need to see the information, but the thing is that is devastating, for terrorist organization, for us to be able to find you before someone told you to start, having tradecraft, before you were trained in tradecraft. You are still, we know who you were around, and then you go forward, and what happens is you go backward. You find those people, and you go forward, and you find everyone that they're connected to. And so it makes every terrorist act very, very difficult, very hard to avoid what happens next, And so so I think that yes, it is a fissionable material. Like, it is something that is pretty dangerous in that area. And it is also why people like me, like when I travel all over the world, if I see someone that is remotely, like, I have to admit, if they are remotely interesting, like they say things that are a little like on the edge of that, I don't talk to them anymore. like I'm just like, I don't want to be.
How about this also from the NSA's very interesting website? Our ultimate target, 256-bit AES. They have a supercomputer. This is, by the way, this is old data. They built a supercomputer in like 2004, a Cray. I'm sure they have much better technology, but they want to crack AES. So, Mike, So that is the defense, right? Hey, we need to do this. You got to trust the NSA. We got to protect you.
Yeah, but there are things like the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment and the laws that Congress has written that authorize what the NSA can and cannot do within the limits of the Fourth Amendment. And the issue here was not so much whether or not they're protecting us, but whether or not this is legal and whether or not this is constitutional. And that's something that the courts are supposed to decide. I think it's reasonable.
That's what the Supreme Court does, right? Here's more fun quotes from Oak Ridge. Our classified NSA Oak Ridge facility made a stunning breakthrough that's leading us on a path toward building the first exaflop machine by 2018. Again, this is a little dated. Since the capability to break the AES 256-bit encryption key within an actionable time period may still be decades away, our Utah facility is sized to store all encrypted and thereby suspicious data for safekeeping. So if you're sending if you're using Signal, it's being stored there.
So all encrypted data is suspicious. That's an interesting formulation.
It's the same thing as if you got nothing, if you're not, you got nothing to hide, you got nothing to fear.
I would flip that around on the NSA and the intelligence community broadly. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. If there is,
why are they hiding?
Alex, where I would push back on what you're saying is like. Mm-hmm. We have to take their word for all these threats that they're, that they claim their systems are stopping. We don't have evidence because it is secret. Now, obviously, you can't like bust everything wide open and share your sources and methods because then you wouldn't be able to stop anything anywhere, anytime. But I think that, some level of accountability and judicial review, legislative review, accountability through Congress and the courts is needed here simply for public trust.
And I think that what you're looking at here is really a essentially the intelligence version of a double Dutch sandwich. Basically they have done what corporations do with taxes, where they said, well, it's outside the country, which is the way that the NSA has worked for a long time. Congress can write new laws if they want to in this area. I think that it would be very difficult for the Supreme Court to dig into this in the way that they'd like to.
There's the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board, the PCLOB, that was tasked with actually looking at this particular program. And they did, and they found problems with the program. And so again, then what? Once you have this board that's found problems with the program, then you would hope that the courts could review it as well. And you would hope that Congress would review it. Now, this particular program, it's the 702 program or whatever is set to sunset at the end of this year. And so that's going to be the next big debate because it has a 6-year time period. And every time that it is about to sunset, last time in 2017, towards the end of the year, you're going to see all sorts of scare stories in the media about how if we let this program go away, people are going to die, there's going to be terrorist attacks and all sorts of stuff. And yet there has, for whatever you're saying about how this system protects us, there has yet to be any evidence given by the government, by the NSA, of how this particular program has actually stopped any kind of terrorist activity. They can, you can make all these claims all you want, but they've yet to present any evidence of that. And so I'm sure at the end of this year, we're going to see the same thing, where all these stories and all these people saying, oh, if we don't renew this program, people are going to die. And without the evidence to support that, it gets right back to what Owen was saying. What are they hiding? If you actually have evidence of that, show it to us. Show us how this program has actually protected us before we get Congress to renew it. And so, it would be nice if Congress, and from my perspective, I think Congress shouldn't renew it, or if they do renew it,
they will. They will.
Of course they will. Of course they will. But it should be greatly restricted from what it is now. And again, like the law, if you read the law right now, it is not clear that it enables this. This is an interpretation by the NSA of how to interpret this law. Like, make it explicit. If you want the NSA to do this, put that in the law so that people know. Because this is the whole thing. Like, nobody knew about this program, despite the law being public, until Edward Snowden released all these documents that revealed how they were interpreting the law. And that alone is a problem. If you want to say that this is a good program and an important program, fine, but be public about it.
Isn't the theory, though, that there's the congressional oversight and whatever it is, the Gang of Eight, who are cleared to see this. It's their job as our representatives to look at this, and it protects both the security of the NSA and our privacy. Isn't that the theory?
Yeah, but part of the reality is also that the intelligence community has lied to the overseers, right?
Oh.
This is what Senator Wyden has revealed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Well, he'll ask questions, and as soon as you see Senator Wyden asking questions of the intelligence community, you know they're lying about something, because that's how it works.
Right.
He'll basically he's trying to trap them in the lie without violating security clearance that he has. And so, over and over again, he asked them, please explain how this is happening, or what is happening here, or what are the, to what extent are you doing this? And what comes out is that they're lying. They are, maybe, they wouldn't say lying, but they are using words in ways that nobody else defines those words in order to justify what it is that they're doing. And again, that gets to the problem. If you want to do this, be public about it, explain exactly what you're doing, explain how it's justified or how it's, authorized by the law. And then let's have a debate about it. Then let's have a conversation about it. But that's not what we have.
Maybe write to the members of the Gang of Eight, Mike Turner, Jim Himes, Mark Warner, Marco Rubio, Kevin McCarthy, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell, and say, ask some tough questions. We, the people, don't want this blank check to continue. When is the renewal up this year?
The end of this year.
Okay.
I forget if it's like, December 31st or whatever, but it's towards the end of this year.
If you love all things Android, well, I've got a show for you to check out. It's called All About Android, and I'll give you 3 guesses what we talk about. We talk about Android, the latest news, hardware, apps. We answer feedback. It's me, Jason Howell, Ron Richards, TWiT DAO, and a whole cast of awesome characters talking about the operating system that we love. You can find All About Android at twit.tv/AAA.